and welcome to yet another day Lord has given us to look into His Word and meditate. Let us read from Hebrews chapter 11, verse 17 onwards. By faith, Abraham, when he was tested, offered up Isaac. And the one who received the promises was offering up his only son. It was he to him it was said, through Isaac, your descendants shall be named. He considered that God is able to raise people even from the dead, from which he also received him back as a type. Genesis chapter 22 is one of the most thrilling chapters of the whole of the Bible. This chapter starts with these words, after these things. After what things? It was a time in Abraham's life, possibly he was into his 120 years into his life. Everything was going well for him. He had many promises, and the most important promise for him, that was of the promise of Isaac he received. In the previous chapter, we see that he was at peace with his neighbors, had many agreements with them. He had settled the matter with Hagar and Ishmael. Now it is a time to enjoy good things of life, all bundled up in seeing his son Isaac, now at the prime of his youth, growing up gracefully. Now it is this time that God came to test him. So that words after these things have gotten a lot of significance. In our life also, God comes to us and tests us when things are going well, not when things are against us. When things are going well, it is a time that He will come and check where we stand. Now let me tell you the difference between testing and tempting. God never tempts anyone. We read that in James. Testing is to bring the good out in you. But temptation is to bring out the bad in you. Satan tempts us. Satan came to tempt Jesus. Satan tempted others. Temptation is to bring the bad in you. So God came to bring about something good in Abraham. What did God test? The test of Abraham was in three areas. One, it was a test of Abraham's faith. Second, it was a test of Abraham's hope. And the third was a test of Abraham's love. Now these are three things that sustains us and which will be all important in our life. First, let us look at the faith of Abraham. How did God test his faith? Now you know that faith and obedience go together. There are a few things we learn about his obedience. Number one, when God came and told him to sacrifice his son, his only son Isaac, his obedience was immediate. He saw the dream of the night and he got up early in the morning. So it was an immediate obedience. There was no delay. There was no fasting and praying. Second, his obedience was costly. He could have given anything in exchange for his son. Money, oxen, anything that he could. But God asked his only son and his obedience was costly. Third thing, his obedience was unquestioning. There was no argument between God and Abraham. When he appeared, he said, here am I. That means it was a heart of obedience which was ready to obey God. Number four, his obedience was practical. He prepared. He got up early in the morning, saddled up the donkeys, took up the wood and the fire and all that. So there was this practical area of his obedience we see there. Number five, it was sustained. His obedience did not give up after the first day. They were walking through the southern desert of the southern Judea for 3 days where they saw the Mount Moriah and they kept it on. He was determined to obey God no matter what. Number six, that obedience was an act of worship. Remember Abraham saying to his servants, I and the lad will go yonder, worship God and come back. It was not grudgingly. It was not a bitter response to what God said. It was an act of worship. So, and finally, the seventh thing about his obedience was complete. There was no half measures. God said to offer him as a burnt offering. A burnt offering has to be burned till the last. That means if you put that lamp on that altar, you put the fire to it, next day you come, you will see only the ashes. A complete obedience, not a partial obedience. And he came out in flying colors. The second area that Abraham was tested was his hope. Abraham's hope was not in his money, bank balance, property, or anything else. His hope was everything bundled in the boy Isaac. If you read the genealogy, we read in Genesis chapter 11, we see one generation coming after another. And then in the last part of that genealogy, we see that an end to that genealogy, saying that Sarah was barren. There was no going forward. There was no hope of a successor, next generation. And God gave that. So the question is, and the test is his hope in God or is it in Isaac? Paul says, if our hope is only in this world, we are the most miserable of all men. If our hope is on the things of this world, for example, your money, your health, your children, once you lose that, then there is no reason to live. But Abraham hoped and believed in a God who could even raise the dead. So he came out in flying colors, showing that his hope was not in Isaac, it was in God. The third area of testing was in his love. When God came to him, he said, offer your son, your only son, the son whom you love. God knew that he loved his son Isaac. There's nothing wrong in that. But the question is your whole love bundled up in that? The question is, how do you love God? Someone asked Jesus, what is the greatest commandment? And he said, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the great and foremost commandment. The second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Upon these two commandments hang the whole law and the prophets. Now, all the commandments, the 10 commandments plus 100 and plus the other 613 commandments, you see a lot of them. Some of them are moral, some of them are ceremonial, and so on. Jesus puts all of that together in one, and he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart. Now, if you love the Lord with all your heart, then how much of your heart is left to love others? Because the second commandment is like it, he says, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. Just like David says, my cup runs over. So it is a running over experience. Now we should love others from your love for God. This was a question that Jesus asked to Peter also when he rose again. He asked, do you love me than these? There is this comparison. And Peter had to admit, he asked it 3 times. The same question Jesus is asking us today. Do you love me more than this? Know that a lot of things are dear to us in this world. Our health, our family, our house, our job. A lot of things are very close to our heart. The question the Lord is asking is, do you love me more than this? So let us look into our own lives this morning and ask, Lord, if I am tested in these areas, where is my hope? Where is my faith? Where is my love? Abraham came out flying colors. The Lord talks about him and he said, now I know that you really fear me. That was a testimony that God had about him. His hope was in God. His faith was shown in his obedience to him, and his love was demonstrated in the fact that he raised up the knife to kill his own son. In fact, the language is very strong. He already in his mind sacrificed his son. He's already gone through that process in his mind. There is no turning back. It's not acting. It was true. For God had to send his angel and said, Abraham, Abraham, don't lay your hand on this child. I know that you will go ahead and kill your son. Don't do that. I understood. May the Lord help us when God tests us in this area. It is to bring about the good in us, to bring about our faith, to bring about our hope, and bring about our love for God. God bless.